In 2014, Elizabeth Holmes was on the cover of Fortune magazine. Forbes called her the youngest self-made female billionaire in American history. Her net worth was estimated at $4.5 billion. She had dropped out of Stanford at 19 to start a company called Theranos. The premise was revolutionary, a small device called the Edison that could run hundreds of blood tests from a single finger prick of blood. No needles, no veins. She told investors, partners, regulators, and patients that it worked. It did not work. It had never worked. And she had known that for years. Holmes founded Theranos in 2003. She modeled herself explicitly on Steve Jobs. The black turtleneck, the controlled public persona, the absolute refusal to discuss how the technology actually worked. She called it stealth mode. She said it was to protect trade secrets. In reality, there were no trade secrets. There was no working technology. The Edison device could only reliably run a small number of tests. For the majority of what Theranos advertised, the company was secretly routing patient samples through standard commercial laboratory equipment, the same machines used by every other lab in the country, while telling patients the results came from Edison. The margins of error on the Edison's actual output were, in some cases, so wide as to be clinically dangerous. Patients received false negatives for cancer, false positives for HIV. Medical decisions were being made based on fraudulent data. Holmes raised over $900 million from investors, including Rupert Murdoch, former Secretary of State George Shultz, and former Secretary of Defense James Mattis. She recruited board members who were powerful, prestigious, and almost entirely without biomedical expertise. She told them what they wanted to hear. In 2013, Theranos signed a deal with Walgreens to operate blood testing centers in their pharmacy stores. Hundreds of thousands of patients used the service. They believed the results were accurate. In 2015, journalist John Carreyrou of the Wall Street Journal began investigating. His first article ran in October 2015. Holmes went on television and called the allegations lies. She said his sources were disgruntled ex-employees trying to harm the company. The Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services investigated the Theranos laboratory in Newark, California, and found it posed immediate jeopardy to patient health and safety. They revoked its certification. They banned Holmes from operating clinical labs for 2 years. Theranos was dissolved in 2018. Holmes was indicted on federal charges of wire fraud and conspiracy. Her trial began in 2021. Her defense argued that she genuinely believed in the technology, that she was a visionary who had failed, not a fraudster who had lied. Former employees testified otherwise. They said Holmes had been told explicitly and repeatedly that the Edison device did not work and had directed them to hide that fact. Holmes was convicted on 4 counts of defrauding investors. She was sentenced to 11 years and 3 months in federal prison. She reported to prison in May 2023. Elizabeth Holmes told a story about revolutionizing healthcare. It was a story designed from the beginning to be believed. She dressed the part, spoke the part, and recruited credible names to stand beside her. The technology never existed, but the patients did. And some of them made medical decisions based on those results that cannot be undone.